Stop you right there. Weren't those the same idiots that thought leeches were the cure to pneumonia?
The founding fathers were dumb as shit. Why do we keep using them as a benchmarker for what we should do as a society today?
We're talking about traditions and the founding fathers. And as the young men said, some of them don't stand up. Leeches? Probably not the best medicine. Although with today's healthcare, some people, that might be the only coverage they have.
These folks didn't have plumbing or toothpaste back then. They smelled like ass and onions, and you want me to listen to them on what my right should be?
Smell like ass and onions? I like that powerful argument. Then he kind of glossed over that his rights wouldn't be too great. Listen, the founding fathers had some great ideas. The problem was application, because the application was only to white males. Hear that, originalists? Clarence Thomas, Amy Barrett? It wouldn't have fared too well back in the day.
We didn't know fetal alcohol syndrome was a thing till like the 70s. So women could just drink while pregnant for like forever. If I'm not mistaken, fetal alcohol syndrome can like damage your brain, right?
Now this is a young black man speaking up. So can we say back in the days of the founding fathers, this wouldn't have happened at all? By the way, he recorded a video. Now think back to the days of the founding fathers. Think back to the days of the 1700s or whatever. They persecuted and prosecuted people for magic. Do you know how much we do today that would be considered magic? We carry around devices that allow us to talk to people who aren't in the room. That's magic. Got a stake, gonna burn you. We have machines that fly. Are you kidding me? We control the flow of water. There's so many things we do just every day that would be magic back then. A black man recording a video in the days of the founding fathers, we'd have had a different Bill of Rights, wouldn't we?
Hello, I am Benjamin.
Benny Frank, crawling out of the grave. What's happening, dude?
Well, I'm here to see what has become of these United States.
Well, Ben, you have come at a historic time.
Oh, have I?
Yes, thanks to the Lord Jesus Christ and a few true believers of the Supreme Court, they finally overturned Roe v. Wade, and a woman's constitutional right to an abortion is gone.
Are you serious?
Yeah, dude, in like 20 states or something, no more innocent babies are going to be murdered. The apostles, I mean the founding fathers, would be so proud.
Proud? Proud of a court trampling on a person's freedom to pursue a remedy to something that is natural and common, if unfortunate?
I thought you'd be happy about this.
Have you not read the manual I published in 1748 containing practical knowledge for the common man, including natural remedies to conduct an at-home abortion?
What?
Yes, it was indeed a very popular and widely circulated book.
But the Constitution says we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, so pro-life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
That's the Declaration of Independence, not the Constitution.
Same thing.
No, they're not the same at all.
This TikToker by the name of Jacob Arthur does a really good job of pointing out how right-wing Americans really don't understand basically anything that they believe to be fundamental to their ideology. Like, for example, the Constitution. Very often, they like to push specific ideas about the Constitution, especially the Second Amendment, without reading critical lines, like, well-regulated militia. And then they like to make these really bold claims, and making these bold claims based off of their misunderstanding is not something that is just within the realm of your average, everyday Republican voter. It's actually something that some of the highest elected officials and unelected officials within the Republican Party support. Just look at the Supreme Court justices that very often push this idea of a traditionalist or an originalist constitutional perspective, something that was literally disavowed at the time. It was very much the mind of the founding fathers that the Constitution should be constantly changing and should always represent the will of the people, whoever the people are at that point in time who are alive. Now, here's where we had to put like a big asterisk though. The founding fathers were like incredibly racist, and they were all pretty miserable people. Just from like a purely moral standpoint, there's not really a founding father that is morally defensible today, except for maybe, I guess, Thomas Paine. But even that's up for a debate. But all of that is to say, the ideas that they claimed to support that were written into the Constitution aren't even followed by the right-wingers today and aren't even understood by the right-wingers that are around today. I mean, most of the Bill of Rights are explicit and direct limitations on police. I mean, quite literally, half the Bill of Rights is saying that police can't do particular things and putting specific constraints on their power. So, I'm pretty sure right-wingers would have a pretty upset time with that. But then there's another aspect to this that's really important, and it actually answers a question that I think a lot of people don't really bother to ask, which is, why are Catholics in the United States so often adversarial to this particular pope? And why do Catholics in the United States differ from Catholics all over the world? One of the big important reasons for this is simply because of the fact that Christianity in America, that is to say Christianity in the United States, didn't really gain popularity until a bit later in time, somewhere around like the 1950s and 60s. And it came into popularity not because people all of a sudden found themselves just enamored with religion. Christianity found itself in the mainstream in the United States for basically two particular reasons. Now, before anybody says, oh, but there's always been Christians in the United States, that might be true to some extent, but the reality is that if you go back to the early 1900s, church membership was something around like 15% of the country compared to it's like 60 or 70% of the country that it reached in like the 1960s or 70s. But that harsh reality is reflected in important things. The reality is that most Americans weren't like avowedly Christian up until after World War II. So what happened that made so many people all of a sudden religious in the United States? Well, there were two big things. The first big thing is right-wingers in the United States and white supremacists in the United States decided that as the government was trying to make segregation illegal, that they would say that segregation was their religious liberty. So a lot of people all of a sudden adopted this new devotion to Christianity purely because they thought it would be a very convenient argument to defend themselves in the courts to say that segregation was somehow their religious right, that banning segregation was a violation of their religious freedom. And that religious freedom argument really won over the right-wingers of then and still have won over the right-wingers of today. They tend to think that they have a religious right to discriminate against whoever they please. So that's one of the main reasons. But the other reason is the fact that business interests were looking for a new way to combat socialism and a new way to market a lot of products. So you will find things like televangelism, you will find things like prosperity gospel, all of a sudden starting to kick up in the United States alongside this picture of the United States and this picture of the nuclear family and the American dream and all of these things. These were cultural inventions that were wrapped up in a Christian bow. This is quite literally something that was sort of designed in think tanks. And one of the main proponents of this was actually like Edward Bernays, who was literally like the father of the entire field of public relations. A lot of right-wingers at the time thought that Christianity was an open door to invite a lot of right-wing politics into the mainstream, invite a lot of anti-communism into the mainstream, and that they could basically invent out of whole cloth their new brand of Christianity. And that's really what it was. That's why Christianity in the United States looks so different than it does in a lot of other places. The reality is that evangelical Christianity in the United States is something that is more of a product of PR campaigns than it really is of any type of religious effort. And now we're dealing with the consequences of it, because what we have right now is we have a huge crowd of religious zealots who follow a brand of Christianity that is closely tied to both right-wing politics and big business.